Welcome to Primal Perspective. My name is Ben Sanford and I'll be your guide today. In this series, I'm having conversations with my friends, colleagues, and teachers who have valuable and unique perspectives to share with the world. By exploring topics from a primal perspective, we can reveal the principles, processes, and patterns of nature which enhance any practice and can give us insight into our lives. This month at Tribal Edge, our focus is mentoring leadership, which is a focus on teaching, leadership, mentoring, and the nature of influence. And I had a privilege to talk with my good friend and mentor, Randy Russell. And Randy has been a leader in the human nature connection field for many, many years and has an amazing story to tell. Randy is the founder of Soulor and Inner Pathworks and the former founder of Life Designs. So I look forward to sharing this talk with you. And now, Randy Russell.
Well, thank you, Randy, for being here. It's really good to see you. And I'm excited to have you on here for a couple reasons. One is, our focus this month is mentoring and leadership. And I consider you a mentor in my life, and you've certainly been a beacon of guidance throughout the years in both just who you are as a person, but also specifically in your field. And so I'm really excited to let others who may not know you get to know you a little more. So
nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Do you, why don't we start with, could you share a little bit for people that may not know you as well as I do, a little bit about your background in relationship to mentoring, leadership training, or teaching?
Absolutely.
Area?
Sure. My whole life has been with mentors and elders. I feel very blessed that my parents were wise enough. My dad was considered, he was a minister in the Deep South, but he was considered a peacemaker. And whenever there was some church that was about to blow up or fall apart, I already knew we were moving there. And he had the distinction of being able to move even into those, the hollers in the Deep South where you could live your whole life. And if you weren't from there, you were a good person, but you're not one of us. And within a couple of months, he was family with everybody there. He just had this incredible ability to be present with people in such a way that he built family, built trust, and naturally became a leader in those areas and a mentor as well. And then my mom was highly creative and a lot of fun. He was called Pa Russell, she was called Ma Russell. So I grew up in this family that was rich in love and kindness, but we were also always on call. So you end up with a call at 3 a.m, you're on call, and you're there for people at that rate. The good news about this is that we had a lot of visitors that stayed at our house, of mentors and elders and missionaries and people that were from all over the world, all kinds of experiences. And for some reason, I've got a brother and a sister. I'm the oldest of the three. Almost everybody, storytellers and the like, that would stay with us, they would sit down with us in the front room and they would listen to us. And, of course, being a little kid, we'd jump up and run into the other room and find our favorite toy so we could show it to them. And that's where it starts. And then they ask you all about the toy, and how you play with it and where you play with it. And they were asking these sacred questions, whether they knew what they were doing or not, or this was just who they were. I don't know if they'd been taught this or they'd gotten it. I don't know where they got it, but they were good at it. But then also being a preacher's kid, it meant that I spent more than a month every year with all the other pastors putting tents up for camp meeting. And so, working with these pastors and teachers in this kind of a setting where you're putting tents up, putting in electricity, putting ice boxes, not refrigerators, ice boxes in these tents. And, having them ask me questions and be present with me was just amazing. Every morning we do worship on all these mattresses that would eventually be in all the tents. And, and we were included in it as, these young guys. I mean, young, like I started helping out when I was like 10. And so growing up in that. And then I spent all my summers at summer camp. My dad was the assistant director at the camp. So I was one of the camp brats. And the church I grew up in believed that nature was the second best way to be able to connect with the Creator. And so they kept saying that nature was God's second book, and I kept saying, no, it was the first one, but so at any rate, I remember one of the, it was a college kid that was the nature guy. His name was Ronnie Lambeth, and he was this big, huge guy, about 6'4", that had like really wavy hair, and he looked like a cross-eyed lion. His eyes were just not exactly, but man, the story, he would still tell stories about bearded rattlesnakes and all kinds of crazy stuff. But to keep me and the director's kid out of trouble, he would say, hey, you want to go with me? I need to collect some specimens for the nature building. And so he would he'd get us out of camp. And this is this beautiful valley in North Georgia with cascading waterfalls that came down on both sides of the camp. And it was just like amazing, rich area for everything, plants, animals, reptiles, amphibians, everything. So he would take us on these walks. And this is when I was like 12 years old. And he'd get us far enough from the camp that we couldn't just turn around and go back without having to think about it. Not that he needed to do that, but he still did it. And then he would take off running. And now, us, there was three of us. There was the secretary's boy, the director's boy, and then me, all the same age. And we're trying to keep up with him. And he'd lose us on the trail, but we keep running because he'd only go far enough so that we wouldn't quit. And then we'd come up on him, and he'd be laying down with his feet up on a stump. And as soon as we got there, he would jump up and he'd say, hey, come here, take a look at this. And he'd take us over and he'd show us a plant where a deer had bit it off. I mean, he didn't tell us that now. I know it now. But he'd say, hey, look at this. And he'd say something about it, point it out, and then he'd take off running. Well, we want to look at it more, but now we have to catch up with him. And he would run us all through the mountains, for hours, like 3 or 4 hours, every couple days, doing this with us. And we were there for 10 weeks. So, we got a lot of training. So it was kind of that same stalking wolf style of just making it difficult enough that it caught your attention, and interesting enough that you had to keep going. And so those kind of mentors were the ones that I grew up with. And then when I was 15, my folks did a rites of passage, which was the end of childhood, not the beginning of adulthood, but the end of childhood. And then I moved from home and moved in with mentors and elders who were helping me to discover what my gifts were and who I was. And so I was at camp in the summers, and my dad stopped being the assistant director when I turned 15. So now I was the director's sidekick and his go-to guy, until I actually became like the camp director. And growing up in that style and having directors that were more about character development, having fun, but doing it with character development, and really tuning in on the staff so that they knew how to be there for the campers. And so I was raised with this kind of a community, a tribe, and it really was a tribe Then my dad did a rites of passage into adulthood when I was 21, and then protected my first vision quest about 9 months later. And I didn't even know that's what he was doing. It's like I was going through some crazy stuff from college, where I was about to lose it, and I knew that I needed to go to the wilderness to figure out what I was doing again, because I was off track. And he went along, well, he didn't say a word, and he camped away from me, and he held space for me the whole time I was there, which I didn't figure out until years later what he was up to. You know, my dad passed when he was 50 years old, and he pretty much handed the mantle to me on his deathbed and said, "You're going to take these things in your own way and take them forward, and I'm already proud of you." And then he passed.
Wow, that's amazing.
So when I was 23, I finished college, graduated from college, and I had all these friends college friends that were going, "Man, I don't know why I'm here. It's like I'm wasting money because I don't know why I'm here." So I called my folks up and I said, "I love the way you brought me into adulthood. Can we use the basement for a dorm and start a program and help them discover how to be who they are the way you did it for me?" And so at 23, I started the first, what would be called a gap year now. And we did it together for 3 winters before I became a full-time teacher, in Newfoundland, Canada.
What kind of a teacher was that? Just in
I was
normal school?
Well, all the schools in Newfoundland are church schools that are paid for by the government. So I taught spirituality, and I taught photography, and I taught, eventually I was teaching outdoor education or kind of a deep nature connection kind of thing, which I did for 7 years. And the last place I did it was in British Columbia. And that was a lot of fun up there in central BC. And then I went back to grad school and got another master's, and was a recreation therapist and then a wilderness therapist. And then started working with college age kids again back in about 1992. And have been doing that ever since. I've created 4 different young adult programs now that are all about the passage into adulthood and self-discovery.
Yeah, and what's the name of the most recent one you've been doing?
Yeah, this one is called Inner Path Works, because your inner path works. So this is really about knowing how to listen to your own guidance system.
And what does it look like? Just real briefly, what's your program
All right,
look
so
like?
there are not two human beings on the planet that are alike. By design, we are all different. And one can say that the creator doesn't want any carbon copies. He just loves each individual for who they are, and make sure that they're all different. So in that difference, that includes things on how your brain is designed, that you're not going to change that organic design. It doesn't mean you can't expand and learn skills in all different kinds of areas, but you do have a design that's organic, that's who you are. And then there's some other things, some natural skills that you have that come out in your interests. And kind of how you can tell that you're on one of these is that you feel fully alive when you're in it. It's like it matches. It's like driving a really nice sports car through the curves. It was built for that. So in the same way, when you're on and you have this fully alive, you don't need anything to make you feel rich or fulfilled. You're joyful in the process of what you're doing. without any assistance at all, you know you're close to your design.
That's beautiful. So what's an example, like a day in your program for a student?
Well, we start off with awareness exercises, and we actually use some things that came from lineages that I've been part of. I had the privilege of sitting with Jake Swamp from the Iroquois, in a teepee for 4 days with him, and learning the Thanksgiving address, where you know, in the Iroquois, you don't start a meeting without all the representation that needs to be there, which includes the trees and the plants and the animals and, you know, all the other things that make this a harmonic, you know, this planet work in harmony. You give thanks to all of them and remember them as you're making decisions, so that you're not just making decisions for the two-leggeds, you know, that you're considering everything and everyone. So a holistic, truly holistic. So I use that in the mornings to start our whole connection, starting with gratitude, which you can't be in depression and gratitude at the same time. And so letting go of what yesterday's problems were, you know, and facing life anew, and with an appreciation. So we do that, and then we actually use the 8 directions, you know, that John Young has perfected, the 8 shields. And because when you look at the northeast, south, and west, and the intermediate directions, you're actually looking at how everything works. So it's a really mini course in how does everything work, and which one are you on right now? Which one, you know, which one of those, from getting the idea to getting the things together to do the idea, to being in the middle of the work, you know, to taking a little break and seeing if it's all done, to, you know, to celebrating and sharing with community. I mean, all 8 of those, we go through them as a quick review in the morning. And at the same time, we're learning how to listen, so that we drop all thought, emotion, and just turn our sensors totally open to each one of the directions, to be able to read from each one of those some inspiration for that day as you face that direction. And of course, you know, including the earth, you know, our mother, the earth, including the creator. So that's kind of, and then we set our intentions. And so setting the intentions on the day, knowing that you are, if you are being who you are naturally, you are naturally an asset to the planet. You're a needed component. You're here at the right time with the right stuff, you know. And I could easily go into more of that as you look at any environment, how the environment tunes to what the needs are. You know, we see that in nature all the time. So you are an asset here. And so setting our intentions is, how can I use my assets to improve our community and the bigger community today? And then we do an hour sit spot, you know, where we go to each person goes to an area and tries to really hone into that area and drop all their superficial thoughts or worries about anything else, and just say, you know, listening even to the silence in between the sounds, to really open oneself up, which eventually ends up with them being able to better hear that own inner guidance system by doing that. Then when they come back, we kind of do a scout report on what did you pick up, you know, what's out there today. And they get better and better at it, to the place that, you know, they're within 5 or 10 feet of an elk that's walking by, or you know, the birds are landing right next to them, if not on them. And it's like, you know, they're really teaching them how to move into that slower brainwave pattern, where all of nature treats you like friends instead of like a, some kind of an aberration that's causing distress signals out there.
Mm.
So that's how we start each day. And we do it with a fire, and typically somebody's going to bust a coal and get our fire started. So we're doing this around ancient sunlight. And then from there, it just depends on what we're called to do that day to match where they are in their growth and what the next step is for them to move towards understanding why they're here and how to be that person.
Very cool. And this is how big of a group?
Right now I have 4 to 6 that are there on a regular basis.
Yeah, and they're there full time, right? You guys are.
They're there for 5 to 6 months.
Yeah, it's amazing, really amazing. I got to visit a couple times and see the crew in action and stuff. It's really a cool field that's created. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Sounds like a lot of influence from John Young, obviously. Some of the art of mentoring practices, and of course Tom Brown is in the background.
Yeah, Stoffing Wolf is a big part of this.
Yeah.
Especially the concept of being able to read radiance from it within. Like going from your heart and sending that awareness waves out, but then also to be able to ask questions from that that are related to you and your role. It's one thing to be aware of your environment. It's another to be aware of how to use your gifts in the environment by being aware of what's needed, that you're the perfect answer for.
Mm. Yeah, sounds like the caretaker.
It definitely is.
Yeah. I've noticed that whenever I'm in the woods and I shift to caretaking, like actually just working on stuff, it's like, man, is there a feeling of belonging and acceptance? Everything
Really?
just goes, oh, good, a human doing their job.
Yeah. And a lot of my students that come here, they're craving this, but they don't know that that's what they're craving. They just know that there's something missing.
Yeah.
And what's missing is them.
That's awesome. So let me ask you, so I mentioned we're focusing on leadership, teaching, and mentoring.
Right.
And I make distinctions. They're very connected and related, obviously, but I also make distinctions there. So let me just ask you, what is leadership to you? How would you describe that?
All right. So leadership to me, number one, is modeling. Okay. And you're not modeling for them, but you're living fully, which is a model. Okay. So they don't need to identical, be who you are at all. Matter of fact, if they're doing that, you didn't do a very good job because you didn't include listening in your leadership. Because modeling, really, one of the highest aspects of modeling is listening from a soul level. And when you listen from a soul level, they get that you get them. So you may not agree with them, but they know you really heard them totally and you get them. And that's a huge part of true leadership is that relationship of being fully in yourself. And that's not an egotistical thing. It just means you're being the full version of who you actually are. And actually, the key is, and this takes your ability to listen, is that you are reading who they are, not necessarily their dog and pony show, who they're pretending to be, but you're actually listening at a level where you're picking up the authentic resonance of who you're talking to. And to be able to see them in such a way that you honor them for being who they are, even if they're not there yet.
Wow. Yeah.
So they actually hitchhike on your awareness and your energy, but it helps them to fit into their own vehicle in such a way it's easier for them to be you, and they feel really comfortable around you because they know they can be you, that there's not going to be any judgmental type interactions. That doesn't mean that you're not going to give them feedback, even strong feedback, but it's always going to be from a place of being able to read who they are and talk to them, to their soul, rather than to their head. And you combine the both, because most of us out here right now on the planet are very much locked into some kind of logic that may not be logical at all when you really look at who they are. So to be able to live beyond that with them, to be able to be so present that they're not afraid to be them. Back when I first started Inner Pathworks, which was back in like 2005, Colleen and I was working with this a Lakota elder, and I asked him what the gathering of elders was called, and he said it was called a Wanishpa. At least that was his term for it. And so I decided I was going to run a Wanishpa, that I was get these wide elders to come in so that they could share with the younger people. And so we set it up for the first Friday of every month. We would do a Wanishpa, and the elders would come, and we had no problem with people showing up. I mean, turns out our driveway wasn't big enough for all the people that wanted to show up, and our house was pretty crowded when it happened. But what I learned almost by accident was that the Wanishpa was not for the elders to share their wisdom. It was for them to listen and ask questions that brought the wisdom out in the ones that were there. And that is like, yeah, that was almost by accident that I got that. And it's like, wow, because then I realized that's what was done to me, as a child. That's what was done to me. And
that's
so
what you were describing with the toys and whatnot. Yeah.
So I had to stumble into that by setting up something totally different than I thought I was setting up, and loved it more than what I would have set up.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. So how would you describe mentoring? And
so the leadership aspect of this, I'm going to kind of combine them. Okay. It's hard for me to talk about leadership without adding mentoring into it.
that's why I called my class Mentoring Leadership.
Exactly. And you got to, is this leadership mentoring or is this mentoring leadership? Because they're really combined. The leader means that's the modeling aspect of it more. And there is some guidance and some comments that you make, and it's lots of times you do it by question. It's like, those kind of questions. It's like, because really what you want, and this is highly in mentoring, but also in leadership, is you want that person to think they're the one that came up with the answer. If it's your answer, it's not important.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice, it's valuable, but there's no need to apply it because it's theirs. It's your answer that you, instead of the answer they came up with.
Yeah.
So if the answer is theirs from their experience, even if you kind of coyoted them into it, meaning that you asked the kinds of questions where it led them to that answer. You know, because there's the Lakota coyote and then there's the Apache coyote. You know, and both of them are a little bit trickster, but one of them is not to fool you, but to actually educate you.
Mhm.
So I would say that the mentoring aspect of this is really focused on you interacting them in such a way that they discover themselves. I don't know anything else that's important for them to discover.
Well said. Yeah.
You know, because if you are a unique design, then you need to be reading the owner's manual for you, not the owner's manual for someone whose brain works almost opposite to yours, or when you guys communicate, you have to interpret what they're saying because it's a different language, because it's coming from a different part of the brain. So how do you do that? Let's see. There's the type of leaders that are up front that you can learn from. But when you add the mentoring into it, your projects are self-discovery oriented rather than a solution for an emergency or, something that needs to get done.
Problem solving. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a hurricane's going through and you need to clear the trees out of people's houses and stuff. Although a good mentor is going to use that too, because the real thing about a mentor is that every moment is a teaching moment, that nothing is wasted.
Yeah.
Where a leader is going to give you all kinds of valuable information on how to do techniques and how to do projects, but they may or may not be able to actually expand you and your ability to be more valuable by being who you are in any situation, where you're trusting that inner intuition, because the true inner intuition is also looking at your design so that it takes the least amount of energy for you to succeed, because you're using your equipment the way it's supposed to be used. And I've said, you can use a small jet to pull stumps, but why would you? It's not what it was designed for. It's probably going to wear it out. You'll never get off the ground that way. I mean, it's like, and people are like that. It's like, if you can't recognize who this person is and what the gifts are they bring, then you can slow their ability down of feeling alive and valued and getting them to a place that they're actually being a natural asset to the environment and the community by just being who they are, which doesn't take a lot of effort to be who you are. It takes more effort to be someone that you're not.
Right.
Wears you out. Matter of fact, you live about 30 years longer if you'll be you instead of take on some role of some person that you thought was really, an incredible person, so you want to be just like them. Nah, give that up. That's really gonna use up a lot of energy that you don't need. You're valuable enough with what you got.
Yeah. Wow.
Hire somebody else to do what what's not your gift, or get them to be a team member with you, so that you've got the best team has at least the 4 different main versions of types of people, has all 4 in it, and they understand each other to not get in each other's way.
Yeah. A respect and appreciation for the different strengths. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your gifts? Who are your gifts? And it's interesting because one of those types of people, the one whose brain lead, whose organization lead is the left front, they naturally see what people should be doing because of who they are. Only they don't have any empathy, so they're just telling you what to do. And you could rebel from that, especially if your lead is on the right side where you don't want anybody to tell you what to do.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I remember you exposed me to Catherine Benzinger's work.
Amazing stuff.
Very, very helpful. Yeah, very, very powerful. So what's one thing I've been looking at is, with mentorship, one way I describe it is that it seems like a distinction for a unique distinction for mentorship is from leadership and even teaching is it's doing those things and it's modeling but it's doing it with relationship, not that you wouldn't have a relationship as a teacher or whatever, but you're actually invested deeply in the potential and the progress of the other person.
Yeah.
How's that ring to you?
One of the definitions that I've used is teachers put things in, mentors draw things out.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Okay, so the mentor is mining your best self to the surface. So the project's important, but that you discover more about how awesome you are is right there as important as the project.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Now you can teach someone, how to carve a bow, or you can teach them all about themselves as they carve the bow by using the metaphors. And mentors tend to use stories and metaphors a lot. Matter of fact, it's usually like about 10 or 12 years later that you actually realize you were mentored.
Right. Yeah. And the effects are ongoing.
I mean, I get phone calls from students I had like 10 years ago. And the first thing they go is, Randy, I finally figured out what you were doing. And it's like,
yeah, that's a good sign. It sounds like you were being pretty invisible.
And that's an important part of this. It's like, it's that wise as serpents and harmless as doves. It's like how to be, the key word here really is connection. A deep connection with all the components. Your deep connection, with the natural world. Your deep connection with the people that are with you. And combining those deep connections in such a way that they awaken to things that they hadn't realized about themselves. And as they realize it, they actually learn to step into their authenticness, their organicness, in such a way that they're shedding things they don't need anymore and finding that they have less anxiety, less fear, and more sense of vision and purpose, and they just feel good about themselves. And it's like, it's been said from the research that the average human being has about 74% of their thoughts are beating themselves up in some way or another. So their negative self-doubt, putting themselves down, communication with themselves on a regular basis. And the way that I was taught to do this in the lineages that I've had the privilege of being in, you get to the place, matter of fact, yesterday I took two of my students into the sweat lodge, a dry sweat lodge without doing the whole thing, but took him into that space. And then we ran through the levels of moving into your intuition, which we call temples, in our tradition, but dropping them in that. And the one young man, when he came out, he goes, wow, that's the first time that I didn't need to think about anything. I could be totally present the whole time that I've ever done.
Wow.
And he was just like elated that he actually now knew how to be quiet inside, and the peace and joy that he had from just being in that space of being present and receptive.
That's very cool. Something occurred to me. Probably a lot of tracker students will be listening to this, or it's a large part of the audience. So, we've all learned from a coyote teacher, and actually, do you want to talk about that a little bit? How do you describe a coyote? You kind of did, right? Describe a coyote teacher, but is there anything you want to say about that?
Well, the thing about a coyote teacher is that if you were to write down everything they wrote that they said, you'd only get half of what they actually said. Because that's only, the words are about half of it. But if you could, even if you filmed them and you listen to the same 15 minutes, after you apply part of what they said, and then you listen to it again, you think you just listened to something brand new, because there's so many levels that they're speaking at the same time that are woven together in this tapestry, that you got to look at the tapestry a lot. Matter of fact, you may never find all the threads of information that were just blessed into you, that your subconscious got, but you may not have.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this tapestry of because it's not information, it's the fabric of life that they've woven in such a way that when you accept it, and it's as you drop resistance, it actually gains color and dimensions until it's just like amazing. And for those that have taken Tom's classes, if you read the tracker and then go to standard class, when you pick up the tracker again, you think you see how much you missed. Mm-hmm. And then if you go to philosophy class and then you read the tracker again, it's like you've read 3 different books.
Right.
Because where you are represents what you're going to get out, on a conscious level of what they're telling you, are living before you in reality. Yeah. For one, they live the story. So that means that you actually live their story too. It's like all the aspects. And if you actually pay rapt attention, you'll see things in their story that they saw, but they didn't tell you about.
Yeah, that kind of conveyance. So for people that are learning from a coyote teacher, what are some other tips and tricks for learning from a coyote?
Shut the hell up. This is the empty glass kind of thing. Right. Be a hollow bone. Let it. You don't try to listen. You just be as still as possible. Be like a radar, one of those radar units that's seeing if there's something in outer space. So you just got to pay attention to the bleeps. Worry about judging it later. Just take it in. Yeah. Because it's really gonna, you can't perceive something you're not ready for in any kind of application. And quite honestly, depending on, and this is an important point, depending on where you gave up being you, which was a sacred wound, you could call it. It's like somebody made you afraid to be yourself anymore. So you stopped dancing and you stopped being alive, you stopped singing, you stopped drumming, you stopped whatever, you know, and you started looking around to see how you should act. Whatever age that was, is where you're stuck right now. So any kind of anxiety that comes up, any fear that comes up, you shift back to that point until you go in and see it from a large person's viewpoint, and you see the context of it, and then you're able to go, oh, okay, I can learn this from that. It doesn't change the event, but it changes how you perceive it, because you're not perceiving it from an emotional wound anymore. You're perceiving it from some wisdom of what their wounds were that they passed on, or, you know, what the whole environment, and why you gave up being you at that point. Okay, so these teachings, these mentorings that we do are going to take us back to the wound and help us to heal that wound. And if they don't, the mentoring is not as effective. Okay, so you don't have to be a therapist or anything to be there. You just have to be present and be interested and full of appreciation and love for who this person is, even if they're acting out right now. Because quite honestly, if you pay attention, I'm sure that you have seen someone doing something, you're going, what are you for? You know, and what you just said was, oh, you got wounded when you were 4. Wow. And so then if you treat them, if you help them move past that 4-year-old wound, you know, then you got at least a 7-year-old that's going to perceive things at another level. You know, it's going to be able to take things in and be able to embrace being themselves again. And then they catch up. You catch up fairly fast to your chronological age, you know, with your emotional and your mental age and your spiritual age, if you let yourself go back to that point, not because you tried to go back there because it came up and said, hey, we got to fix this. I mean, quite honestly, there's a lot of people that get married to somebody that will bring that out for them, which is disturbing. And yet it's how we heal.
Right.
Because you're here for certain purposes. I mean, you are so designed to be able to fix certain things that no one else could fix, to be in certain situations and bring healing where no one else would have been able to do that, or not in your style, not in your way, you know? And so everything in your life is trying to get you to catch up and be yourself again. And you will be miserable until you actually go, yes, I'm willing to feel that hurt again enough to be able to move beyond it and see it from a different viewpoint. I mean, for those of you that have taken philosophy class, if you go into all your memories area and you say, is there any old memory that's really screwing me up here? Bring it to my landmark and show it to me, but let me see it from the fly on the wall view first. Then you'll move past that fairly quickly.
Yeah, that's a good practice.
And if you need to go into primal to be able to deal with that memory, go ahead. You can be in both areas.
It's right next door. Yeah.
Right next door. It's easy enough. Or go over a couple and you can go into self-healing. That'll help too.
Yeah. Huh. How is mentoring being met today? the need for mentoring being met today? A lot of it's probably not, but I mean, how are we,
You know, there's the earth is self-healing. I mean, you are. I mean, you know, you get a cut on your hand, guess what? Unless there's something else wrong, it's going to heal. So the creator and the earth are both calling for mentors. In order for us to right the craziness that we're in right now, if you haven't noticed, then the earth is going to have to call forth mentors for that to happen. And then, I really do trust that in lots of ways. That doesn't mean that's going to be easy, but there's a lot of people that are listening to us right now that will recognize that they are being called to be able to step into these positions. And they may feel like that, you know, they're not up to it, but that again, it's just shut the hell up. And guess what? It comes to you. It's like being receptive, dropping into that sacred silence, you know. And really one of the things that I think are really important that I teach my students, you know, both of us know some Navy SEALs. And I look at this like as spiritual Navy SEALs. And when they go into an expedition, or, you know, they're called to some event or some conflict or something, they put their equipment on. And today's Navy SEALs have a headset where they can talk to the guy that's got the heat sensor thing from a distance, satellite stuff, to tell them what's behind that door. They also have these glasses that have this little extra thing on it that has an extra screen, so they can actually see what the satellite guy's seeing. Okay. So what I have my guys do is, like, when you start off in the morning, first thing I want you to do is to consciously, with the creator and the earth in charge, put your headset on, test it. Hello, check, check. And then listen. Then put on the glasses, check them out, and then ask that all through this day that any danger that comes my way, I know it before it's a danger to me. And any opportunity for me to use my assets, that I'll realize this is an opportunity and have the courage to actually do what I'm being told. And then from that point, actually what I did is I got a bunch of the little tiny hair ties, you know, these little ones like this. Mm-hmm. And I have them put on a hair tie on their finger because it's a perfect little ring. And anytime they see that, they use it as trigger during the day to go make sure that their equipment's still on.
Nice.
So the call to mentors, if you do that, if you do what I just told you to do every morning, you will end up being a mentor if that is your gift. You know, some people their gift is more into leadership. You know, that's kind of like the doctor who has no bedside manner. But if you do what they tell you to do, you're going to get well. And they think that's, you know, the outcome is worth more than your emotions.
Right.
And there will be some people that are more that way, that are a different kind of mentor. They're a more in-your-face mentor. They're just going to tell you the truth. They're not going to try to read your emotion about it.
Yeah.
They're still really good mentors, and you should pay attention to them. But then there's the coyote mentor that's using metaphor and asking you to do things in slight enough ways that you don't realize that you were given a command. You think it was a suggestion, you know. It's like, it is really fun to be a mentor, and it's not self-serving at all, but it is fun. I mean, I remember stories of you know, Tom and Rick, where grandfather's laughing his ass off, you know, and that was part of his teaching style. And they knew it. They knew that was love.
Right.
You know, and it could feel harsh at times, but the thing is that you want to mentor in the way that your design works. Okay, so there's not just one way to be a mentor. Just realize that the mentoring aspect of this is helping them discover their giftedness and their authentic self. You know, that's the true mentor, is that you win. If you're being menteed, you're the winner, because they're directing you home to yourself rather than just to some skill.
Right.
Because there's mentors that do skills, but the higher form of mentor for Earth's survival and for a healthy culture is that they're leading you home to yourself, that they're giving you opportunity to walk in your own shoes, because most people are walking in shoes that are too big or too little, and it's uncomfortable. It fits. They either keep losing them or it just hurts. So you got to find your own pair of moccasins, you know, the ones that were made just for you. They even match, you know, the toe prints.
Right. If you could only share one thing about mentoring, you know, you had to teach mentoring, not just to be a mentor, but you know, what would it be? You might have already said it.
Know yourself. You know, if you're not fully in your own heart and skin yet, then your mentoring might be really good for projects, but you have to be home in yourself before you can show someone else how to get there. And they have a slightly different path, so it's not about the same path, but there's this almost like magic, but English language is bad on some words, okay? There's this place of belonging, of being whole within yourself, that actually opens up unconditional love for you, for yourself and others and the planet, that makes you charismatic without trying. And that charismatic just means that you're living at such a high life energy level that everybody wants to join you.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and it's so there's a humbleness to it as well. Partially because you knew what it took for you to start ignoring the false information about who you are, and to really hone in on the silence in such a way that you could hear your own song. and hearing your own song is that number one thing. In order to be a mentor, you need to take the time, and whether that's a vision quest or a survival quest or even a modified visual quest, where you commit yourself to awakening all of you, and you stay there until you know you did.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'll know. I mean, it's just like, bing. It's like, whoa. And it's like, it blows you away. And at the same time, it humbles you to the core. And then to recognize that there is a still small voice in there, that if you listen to it, it works. And if you don't, you'll pay. And it's like, at first it's kind of indistinguishable. I mean, it's like, until you listen long enough that the resonance of that voice, what that voice, that sounds so well.
Right.
But you also know it's going to embarrass you at times, because you're going to have courage to actually do what it tells you to do. I mean, because there's some huge things that it's going to tell you to do that you don't think, you think you're either going to be embarrassed if you try it, or you just go, no, how can I do that? And I'm talking about some huge things. I mean, from healings to, things that you couldn't even imagine that you'll be asked to do. So if you go on this journey, you will be an asset, and it will scare you to death at times. But, having that, checking in, keeping your equipment on. So I'd say if you start in either place, you're going to get there. But the sooner you can get into some secluded place where you just commit yourself to hearing that voice so clear that you know your own vision. You know why you're here. I know why I'm here. It doesn't matter. It's like, I've got 3 more weeks with Inner Pathworks. And then I'm going to be doing consulting and other things instead of taking on students 9 to 5, 5 days a week.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm both excited, and it's like, I love that connection and that interaction in that 5 day a week, but it's time for me to do something different, but it's like being able to move into that place of hearing that voice so clearly all day long. I mean, and it's going to save your ass more times than you know. I mean, I can think of me driving through the mountains, and I love curves and stuff, and I'm making time, and all of a sudden that voice says there's deer in the road on the other side of that curve, and I slow down, and I come around the curve, and there's 3 deer right in the middle of the road. There's no way in the world I could have missed them, at the speed and the efficiency that I was driving. I would have got them. I would have had meat for 9 months or more, and for my friends. But I would have had to repair my car too. But even so that's on the physical level. But then there's the physical and the force level. But then there's things on the spiritual level where I can remember when I was teaching that there was I was right towards the end of the class, and the voice told me to go to the door while the students were going out. Okay, so when I finished, I moved over to the door quickly, which I never do. I usually sit down on my desk and I'm playing the guitar or something as the students are leaving. But this day I went over to the door, and this one girl came up, and I just knew to talk to her. And I said, how you doing? And just ask her a couple questions. And it wasn't until 25 years later that I went back for a reunion where they asked me to come back to the alumni reunion. And she came up to me there and she said, do you remember when you met me at the door? I already had a suicide note written and I was heading out to commit suicide. Well, 25 years later, she's still here and loving her life. And I mean, it's the story she was telling about, her and her family, and it was rich. But there's no way I could have come up with that. It's like, the thing is, when you start being a mentor, however you believe in the higher power or whatever that force is that is greater than us, the creator force, you're linked in such a way that you can't even know the difference that you're making. So 25 years later, you'll find out that you did something that was important in that moment that you had no plans to do, but you heard and followed. Now that's a mentor. So a mentor is just someone who shuts the hell up and listens at such a deep level that they know how to be totally alive and totally connected, both to the natural world and to us two-leggeds that are wandering around here lost.
What do you think people are missing or don't get about leadership?
It goes back to they don't get this is about connecting. This is about being family. This is about being a tribe. This isn't about mastering skill. That's just the fun results, the extra results of everything you do. That you get all these incredible skills. But, when I'm carving a bow, if I don't connect with the wood, that bow's not going to be near as nice. If I don't connect with the cordage that I'm making, and if I don't connect with the people around me, my life is missing relevance. So I'm going to be lonely. Where, we are here to celebrate life together. And part of that is recognizing there's no two of us alike. So you should think ahead of time that nobody's going to agree with you right off because their brain operates different and they've had different life experiences. Why would you want them to be the same? This is the one of the scenes that I love in Star Wars is that cafe thing where there's all these different kind of creatures sitting around, socializing together.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if I walk into any cafe, they just don't look as weird, but they're just as weird as all the creatures in that cafe in Star Wars. And if I recognize that they're not going to be like me, then I'm the only one that's going to be in there like me. And then that I get to celebrate them for who they are and be curious about who they were. There's your sacred question comes to life. You have connections that lead to all kinds of important, it's like meeting someone that you think is an accident that you met them, but it led to something really phenomenal. How many times have you missed that because you've been so self-involved in your own doubt? So that's when you have this trigger on that, Spirit is going to tell you, say this to them. That'll be a conversation starter. And you'll nail it. And you'll enjoy your life even more because you're connecting with the people you're supposed to be connecting with, and you guys end up doing projects together and making the planet a better place. And you have better friends because these are people that you harmonize with. But realize, in harmony, you have to have two different notes to get harmony. To get a harmonic, you have to have two different notes that are perfectly aligned, or three different notes that are perfectly aligned, or four different. And then you get an overtone. There's actually another tone that comes in. And so living your life looking for harmonics by being open to connections and interactions. You're also going to know, if you're using this, you're going to know not to connect with that person because of the energy that they're holding. And you may end up putting a hedge of protection around them so they don't hurt anybody. So it's a wonderful mystery to be on.
No kidding. Just want to check. Is there, let's see, I've got a couple other questions here. Is there anything that in your path as a mentor or being mentored that you would have done differently?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a couple times that I was told to intervene and I didn't do it. You know, I mean, one of those, I tended not to listen as well when infatuation was involved.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
And so I called off that wedding and then talked myself back into it again. And it lasted for 6 years. And I didn't end it, but it ended. The interesting thing is that the two of us took the Myers-Briggs test, you know, the personality test. We didn't answer one question the same on the whole test. There was not one question we answered the same. And so that didn't work out too well, but I already knew at the beginning of it, and I just thought that I could power through this. And I mean, I was still in love, but it wasn't working. Our personalities were just like, you know, they conflicted in such a way. So I don't know if that was mentoring, but I was using the same kind of, I got the same information that I would have gotten if I was mentoring, but I didn't follow it, you know. So second guessing when you know that voice really clear is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, you're being told this for a reason. And it's a good reason that is the best for both of you. So that's a real personalized one that I had, you know, and there's times when I'm stubborn enough that I want to do it my way, and realize that if it's really my way, it would be in alignment with who I am. So I wasn't trying to do it my way to begin with. I was trying to do it a way that, you know, that had more to do with, I can do this, you know, that like that stubborn, you know,
really,
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're aligned, it is your way. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, quite honestly, you being who you are, I mean, it's like the small jet, the Learjet kind of thing. I mean, how fun to fly. But, you know, what if you're actually a bulldozer? I mean, that's who you are.
Right.
Then you're going to love pulling stops. I mean, that's your whole life. You know, it's clearing land and pulling stops. You know, that's perfect for you. Yeah. Where, you know, you want to go charging up to a cliff to see if you can fly. I mean, that's ridiculous. Why would you do that in a bulldozer? You know, I mean, what kind of wings do you have to catch one of those? and you're not built with them. So, you know, it's a modification.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of us that are living as modifications and not very happy about it, but we're too stubborn to surrender again and refigure out who we are. So, you know, so there's some real humbleness and willingness to make changes. But we're making changes so that we're, you know, it's like if you have a Maserati and you're putting, you know, low octane gas in it, it's like, you know, are you putting the wrong oil in it? I mean, you wouldn't put kerosene in it. You already know that'd kill it right off. But if you're not treating it how it was designed to run, it's not going to run for you very well. You're the same way. You know, the food you eat, the relationships you have, where you live, the actions and careers that you take, there are ones that work perfectly for your design. And there's ones that your dad really wanted you to do that don't work for you at all. You know, so it's like when you start going within, it's going to be a little frustrating for some of us because we have chosen to be so off base that we're going to have a little bit of anxiety being willing to let go of stuff we thought we needed that we don't. So I'm not telling you this is an easy trip. I'm just telling you it's easier to live as who you are once you get there. But the journey there can be, you know, really frustrating at first because you might have to let go of things that were your security in your 4-year-old self or your 12-year-old self or your 16-year-old self. But your real self can't wait for you to be you so that they can start having the fun that you were meant to have. And when you look at the science, emotions are different than feelings. And here we are with English language again. This is really frustrating in some ways, but because I know Malcolm uses feelings where I use emotions. And we're both saying the same thing, but we use a little different languaging on this. So don't worry about the languaging as much here as is that emotions are indicators to tell you about what's going on. Well, and he'll call that feelings. All right. So there's something on that feeling level that's done in a certain part of your brain. And I'm going to say it the way I teach it, but realize Malcolm uses a little different text on this. So there's, 6 different emotions. And they're indicators, like fear in that one is an indicator that there's something that you need to be cautious about. And if you go into the fear, you both have the answer for how to get, to make it safe again, and the energy to do it. The same with sadness, the same with anger. All right. Where feelings, and the language again, the feelings are more how you have chosen to hold on to something because of a past experience with it. Okay. And you tend to get into a cycle with it. When you're out in the woods, there's so much energy that's used up in having to be in fear or anxiety about danger, that the birds and the deer, the prey type mammals, when the danger is coming, they have anxiety. When it's there, they have corrective anxiety. And when it's gone, all their energy is gone too. They no longer have anxiety. It takes too much energy to keep it up. So they're in they go back to baseline again. Going, and the same with us. It's like our baseline is joy. Now, I'm not talking about, I'm talking about this sense of wellness, of wholeness, of contentness. That definition of joy, where just everything's okay. I'm good, and I'm in awareness. I've got, the thing about presence, about expanding your awareness out, to critical edge or out threshold, expanding it out. I came up with a term for that I liked. Okay. First, what I used to do is I used to take kids up, my students up here to Clark Fork in Idaho, which is not too far from me. And there's this big, huge sign up there that says, you're in grizzly country. And it's got a picture of a grizzly bear and the claws and the hump and the ears. And then it's got a black bear underneath it, and showing the difference between the two, And so I take a picture of them with the sign, right? And then what I do is I either take them and do this, or I tell them about it. I say, okay, we're standing around a campfire up here. It's dusk. It's just turning dark. And we hear a big noise behind us. What happened to the hairs on the back of your neck just now? You sent your awareness out. So for a while, I said, okay, without being in fear, send your awareness out. Okay. And I called it grizzly awareness for a little while, but then I started thinking about it. And then I started thinking about Jurassic Park, the movie.
Yeah.
And so I started calling it Jurassic Awareness, because even those little turkey things, they're dangerous too.
Right.
It's like, it's not just the big noises. It's like, we need to hear the little squeaks too, So when I start them off in the morning, I said, okay, I want you to drop into temples, drop into your heart and expand out from there to Jurassic Awareness. And I want you to tell me where the closest deer or elk are right now, or if there are any predators in the area. So getting them to the place where when they put this on, they're actually in Jurassic Awareness. They're doing Jurassic Awareness and doing protection at the same time. And how am I an asset? So you got all three of those going on. And every time they send that wave out, they send that concentric ring out of awareness, so that eventually they don't have to send it out at all. They're in it all the time.
Right.
So as mentors, when you send that out, that's where you're actually picking up especially from temples, you're sending it out and you pick up who this person really is. And then you interact with them as who they are, from sending that Jurassic Awareness out and not picking up fear unless there's a reason to be afraid of them, but you're picking up an essence of their soul identity. And then you ask, okay, how does my design interact with this design so that it feels more comfortable being itself?
Very cool. I like that Jurassic Awareness. It's probably, it's also probably that old.
I'm sure it is.
That capacity, yeah. Huh. That's powerful, bringing those all together. Well, Randy, is there anything else about leadership or mentoring that you would like to leave with us to wrap this up?
The real thing about this is that once you do that own self-identity, you naturally become a leader. Then you're not trying to lead. So there's people that try to be good leaders. If you're a good connector, and you know who you are, then your leadership will be really strong, and it'll be the right type of leadership for who you are. Because you know, there's books about how different leaders' styles are, but your design really distinguishes you to be a certain type of leader. And you don't have to try, because the more you move into that temple awareness of who you actually are, you know, because the sixth level of the temples is soul. As far as I'm concerned, that's where your instruction manual is. You know, and from that place, you can't not be a leader. You are gonna be. You know, just the energy that you live your life by will make you a leader. And it'll be fun to do. It'll be, because it's fun to be rather than fun to do. So you're just being you. I mean, that's all. Even Creator doesn't want you to do anything but be you. You know?
Yeah.
So a bunch of authentic people that are being themselves makes the most incredible tribe on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
It also cuts down the tension to times when transitions are happening. Because recognize in any transition, there is a disintegration before you have a reintegration. So if you step on this path, there's going to be some disintegration at first before you start integrating. And you also give that to someone that you're interacting with, that you recognize that they're going to have to fall apart a little bit before they can get back together. So it also drops the judgment of, am I doing this right? Because you're not in charge.
Right. Yeah.
And when you start worrying about that, you need to drop back in and say, you know, like for our tracker friends to drop back into temples and going, what's my role here? You know, from heart, what am I feeling? What's my role? If you're not using that every day, then you haven't gotten that habit anchored in to make your life easier again. Yeah, you won't have shame after that either. You'll be guilty once in a while, but you won't ever drop into shame. So, what are we asking you to do? We're asking you to be you, because you're here with the design that we need right now. And you miss the opportunity of living life as the highest adventure you possibly can live, with the least amount of anxiety and the most amount of joy, and great opportunities to make connections that will last eternity. So what's the downside? By doing this, you're going to be a leader and a mentor for someone, because you're being you. And that's all they need you to be, is you. Now, for parents out there, part of the rites of passage that you do with your children into adulthood is to introduce them to you when you get to that point, and drop the management and cultivate a person-to-person relationship. They're still going to honor you if you do that. Well, they're going to honor you even more if you do this, but they're still going to, I mean, you're not going to lose their respect. You're actually going to gain it. And the other thing is that when your kids are about 15 or 16, you need to find mentors other than you, because you're still in parent mode, and that's going to be really confusing for them if you're playing parent, and you don't have mentors there at the same time. because it's really confusing to be mentor and parent at the same time, because they can't tell which one you're being. You can still hold that parent role, but you need another, either male or female, that you trust, that they trust, because they can say things to your kids that you can't. Well, you do. You say it over and over again. They don't hear you. But if you have a mentor say it, they go, oh, wow, that's a novel idea. Never thought of that. And you've been saying it for 3 months. So this mentoring and leadership thing, when we're talking about parenting on this, you know, that's a role that you need to play, that you need to understand how to be the parent and get someone else to be the mentor once they start moving into that adolescence where they're questioning who they are. You can't answer that, because if you answer it, you're answering it as a parent. Even if you're not trying to, you still are. So I think that's a really important aspect of this that I didn't cover up to now. And that's that role of parenting and mentoring needs to be a duet or a quartet, that you make sure by the time your kids are like 13 or 14, even 12 is even better, that you have people in your life. Like, for instance, a godparent should be someone that signs up to be there for them when they're teenagers, not when you die. Okay? That their purpose as a godparent is to help that young person discover their authentic self and not feel like that they need to die physically, but their adolescent self needs to pass away and their adult self needs to come to life. So that's the other aspect of this leadership mentor thing, that it needs to be a duet in a tribe. You need the uncles and the aunties to step in to help your kid find themselves. That's not your job. And if you take it on as your job, you'll confuse them. My dad, who is the most incredible mentor I've ever known, I know no one yet in my 70 years that had the integrity my father had. But he didn't try to mentor me into adulthood. He gave me to other mentors to do it. And he'd step back in at times. But that mentoring role was done by people I highly admire to this day, that they showed up for me and listened in such a way that I recognize why I'm here.
Well, man, I just, I really appreciate you. And I think that's a really powerful, I'm glad you fit that in at the end there. I appreciate your influence in my life. And certainly, man, I'm still finding the tracks, you know. We haven't spent a lot of time together in the last while, but there was certainly a period for me when you were very helped me a lot. So, and
I'm more than happy to be there. And again, I'm just being me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, this is not an effort. This is an embracing that inner voice, you know, so that we get to have these kind of connections. I mean, you know, now that I'm free, I've got to come and spend some more time over there, you know, and swim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you also for your time this evening, and I'm glad that worked out. And man, look forward to having people watch this.
Yeah, and hello to all my tracker friends and anybody else that I've run into in one of those other areas that I'm, you know, whether it's the therapeutic wilderness stuff or whatever. Glad to say hi.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, Randy.
You bet.
And cut.
Shuna. I'm glad that came out at the end. That's
Yeah.
that's a really important aspect.
Yep, I think that's a lot of people need that right now. Yeah.
Well, you get quite a few people that are trying to be mentors to their kids.
Yeah.
You know, and they're listening to your thing and going, okay, I need to do this with, you know, John here. And so then we came in and go, no.
There, hold on. Yeah.
It's like you can teach by metaphor, but you know, you're not going to be the one.
Right.
You're not going to be the one that makes them go, oh yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting too is like I've had relationships with I guess students for long enough that I've actually had that dynamic you were talking about happen. And when I start to see, which is good because it either reflects, you know, I'm doing it invisibly, where the dynamic, I mean, they go, you know, I tell them, I'm conveying something to them for years, and then they come and tell me someone else. I'm like, oh, cool, yeah. However you got to hear it, man. You know.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing. We can say this in a couple different ways. How many times do you have to bang that rock before it breaks? You know,
Right.
You know, which blow did it?
Yeah.
Or the other part of it is that you brought them to the place so they could finally hear it somewhere else.
Right. Yeah.
That there was a bunch of pre-stuff that needed to happen before they could even connect on that level.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the reason I changed from Life Designs to Inner Pathworks, because Life Designs was very much about resistant, I don't show up very well kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, where Life Designs was very much about what major, how do I live my life?
Mm.
And the Life Designs kids weren't asking that when they got there, but they were asking it by the time they left.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I can't consciously teach them what I teach these students. They're not ready for it yet.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, if they don't even know how to boil water yet, you know, I mean, they don't even know how to show up yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then they're not asking sacred questions.
Yeah.
So my students now are asking sacred questions. They don't know that they are, but they are. And so they're at a level they gotta know. And so, you know, they're open to what's going on. You know, they're not being sent here by anyone. They've talked to me and they go, wow, yeah, I want to learn this stuff. You know, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I'd love to know this. And so,
yeah, that's a different stage of readiness. Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been working with, you know, young kids a lot. That you open that for them. But if they were wounded, you know, from home and stuff, or from school or somewhere else, you got them to a certain level, and they heard what they heard from someone else because the ground had been prepared. I mean, and that's really how I looked at working with any human, is that am I breaking ground here, or am I planting seeds, or am I nurturing the plant, or am I getting to harvest? And people that first go to standard class, they're breaking ground, most of them, you know, and they're being told about harvest, but they ain't going to be there for a while.
Yep. Yeah, each stage is preparation for the next, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and each one of them has this like flush before the next one comes in. It's almost like you have to let everything go that you learned to be able to move to the next level.
Yeah,
So
not losing it. You're not like
No,
just you. Yeah.
but it's not your current focus. You're letting go of your current focus so that you have room for another level of it.
Just like developing any skill. Yeah. Yeah.
So the sacred flush. Well, you know, it's even like when you're doing diet stuff, you have to fast first.
Right.
If you want to change your system.
Do the cleanse. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to do the cleanse.
Yeah.
So, you know, and for some people that vision quest is the cleanse.
Yep.
But that's only if they're ready for the vision quest.
Yeah. Right. Sometimes.
Otherwise, they spend the whole vision quest counting leaves.
Yeah. Just trying to survive it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Never surrendering. All right. Good night, bro.
Take care.